Have you ever heard the name Geronimo? For many, it's a shout you yell when you jump from a high place. But the man behind the name was one of the most famous and feared Native American leaders in history. This is the story of Geronimo, the legendary Apache warrior who became the last holdout against the westward expansion of the United States. His life was one of profound tragedy, fierce resistance, and unexpected celebrity. He wasn't born Geronimo. His name was Goyathlay, which means one who yawns. He was born in June 1829 in what is now Arizona to the Badonko Apache tribe. His early life was relatively peaceful. By the time he was 17, he was a member of the Council of Warriors and had married a woman named Alapi. They soon had 3 beautiful children. Life was as it should be, filled with family, tradition, and the freedom of the open land. But that peace was shattered in the mid-1850s. While most of the men from his band were in a Mexican town called Cosquilla to trade, Mexican soldiers descended on their camp. When Goyathlay and the others returned, they were met with a scene of absolute horror. Their camp guards were dead, their supplies were gone, and worst of all, many women and children had been slaughtered. Among the dead were Goyathlay's beloved wife, his 3 young children, and his mother. In a single day, his entire world was destroyed. The man who was once one who yawns was gone forever. In his place was a warrior filled with a deep, burning hatred for the Mexicans who had taken everything from him. This personal tragedy transformed him. He joined the Chiricahua Apache, a fierce and respected band, and dedicated his life to vengeance and resistance. It was his Mexican adversaries who gave him his famous nickname, Geronimo, the Spanish version of the name Jerome. He led countless raids into northern Mexico and across the border into U.S. territory, fighting back against anyone who tried to claim Apache lands. As more and more white settlers moved west, Geronimo's fight intensified. He was no longer just avenging his family. He was fighting for the survival of his people and their way of life. For a brief time in the early 1870s, a fragile peace was established by an American commander named George Crook. But that peace didn't last. In 1876, the U.S. government made a disastrous decision. They tried to force the Chiricahua Apache onto the San Carlos Reservation. This place was a barren, desolate piece of land, often called Hell's 40 acres. The Apache were homesick, short on food, and stripped of their rights. It was an unbearable existence. Geronimo refused to accept it. He spurred a revolt, leading hundreds of his people off the reservation and back into Mexico. For the next 10 years, his life became a cycle of raids and retreats. He and his small band of followers would strike at settlements, then melt back into the mountains, only to sometimes return to the reservation before breaking out again. They were ghosts, seemingly impossible to pin down. By 1882, the U.S. Army was so frustrated that they brought back General George Crook to hunt Geronimo down. After 2 years of pursuit, Geronimo surrendered in 1884, but life on the reservation was filled with tension and mistrust. When rumors spread that he and his warriors would be put on trial and hanged, Geronimo decided he couldn't take the risk. In May 1885, he fled once more, this time with about 35 warriors and over 100 women and children. What followed was one of the most incredible manhunts in American history. To catch this small band of Apache, the U.S. Army deployed at least 5,000 soldiers and 500 Native American scouts. For 5 grueling months, they chased Geronimo across 1,645 miles of rugged terrain. Finally, they tracked him to his remote camp deep in Mexico's Sonora Mountains. Exhausted, outnumbered, and with no hope of escape, Geronimo surrendered to General Crook on March 27, 1886. At the surrender, a photographer from Tombstone named C.S. Fly was present, and he took some of the most iconic photographs of the American West, capturing the weary faces of these legendary warriors. Among the group was a young white boy named Jimmy Mitkin, who had been captured 6 months earlier. But after living with the Apache, he had become so much a part of their family that he cried when he was forced to leave them and return to his parents. The surrender party began the long march back to Fort Bowie, Arizona. But as they neared the border, Geronimo's fear and mistrust took over again, believing they would be killed as soon as they set foot in U.S. territory. He, along with Chief Naich and a small group of warriors, women and children, bolted. They vanished back into the Sierra Madre Mountains, once again defying the might of the U.S. Army. This final escape was the last straw for the military. General Crook was replaced by General Nelson Miles, who was determined to end the Apache problem for good. Miles employed new tactics using a network of heliograph mirrors that flashed sunlight over long distances to communicate and track the fugitives. The pressure was immense. Finally, on September 3, 1886, at a place called Skeleton Canyon, General Miles convinced Geronimo to surrender one last time. He made a promise. After a period of exile in Florida, Geronimo and his people would be allowed to return to their beloved homeland in Arizona. It was a promise that would be broken. Instead of a temporary exile, Geronimo and his followers were loaded into boxcars like cattle and shipped to Florida. There, they were imprisoned and forced into hard labor. It wasn't until nearly a year later that Geronimo was even allowed to see his family again. In 1894, they were moved to Fort Sill in Oklahoma Territory. He tried to adapt, taking up farming and even joining a church. But he was expelled for gambling, unable to give up his old habits. He would never see Arizona again. But as the years passed, a strange thing happened. The feared warrior became a living legend. His reputation fascinated Americans, and he became an unlikely celebrity. He began appearing at fairs and expositions across the country, selling souvenirs and autographed photos of himself. The man who had once been the U.S. government's most wanted enemy was now a star attraction. In 1905, he rode in President Theodore Roosevelt's inaugural parade, a surreal moment in American history. He joined famous Wild West shows like those of Buffalo Bill Cody and Pawnee Bill, which toured the country and even Europe. These shows recreated famous battles and featured other renowned Native American leaders like Sitting Bull and Chief Joseph for Geronimo. It was a way to travel and earn money, but it was also a form of captivity, a spectacle for curious onlookers. He was displayed at the World's Fair in St. Louis and other major events, making him one of the most photographed Native Americans of his time. Towards the end of his life, Geronimo dictated his memoirs, which were published in 1906. It was his chance to tell his own story, in his own words, but his heart always longed for the canyons and mountains of his Arizona home, a home he was never allowed to return to. In February 1909, Geronimo, the great Apache leader, died of pneumonia at Fort Sill. He was buried there, far from the land he fought his entire life to protect. Geronimo's story is a powerful reminder of the human cost of conflict and the complex legacy of the American West. He was a devoted family man turned relentless warrior, a symbol of resistance who became a national celebrity. His life was a testament to the unyielding spirit of a people fighting for their freedom. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the figures who shaped our history. See you next time.